Hey guys, this is the Mad Professor. I'm talking to you from Erbil, Iraq. I'm still here, and I know I haven't posted in a long time because, frankly, it's gotten very depressing, and we're now 12 days into a completely unnecessary war. So I haven't said anything because, sometimes you wonder, is it worth it? Who cares? At the end of the day, we're all going to die sooner or later. But as I would say, a liberal, which means that I am at the end of the day somewhat of a romantic optimist, believing in the goodness of humanity, even though that is very, very hard to believe when, unfortunately, the most evil humans, the most narcissistic humans tend to be the most successful ones. If you look at who is controlling our political system, who's controlling our economic system, even one might say our social system, our cultural systems, it seems that we've fallen into very dark years in the last couple decades, and this is something I'd like to address, but at another time. Right now, I just want to make a few comments about what's going on in the Middle East. I am in Erbil, Iraq. This is part of the Kurdistan region, which is an autonomous region of Iraq. There's a lot of conflict going on there, but right now it's kind of not the central issue in the region, as you can imagine. We're about 200 kilometers or so from the border with Iran. And there are a lot of issues that are going to be are obviously now on the table and will be coming thanks to this incredibly stupid war that Trump has started. So a couple things I want to cover today as quickly as I can. First of all, I mostly want to focus on what's, I wouldn't say behind the news, but being ignored or pasted over by the mainstream news. Things that when I'm watching even BBC, obviously CNN, God forbid you'd see anything about this on Fox News. Things that are just not being covered in any significance whatsoever. So first of all, why are we at war? Why did Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu suddenly decide this is the moment to attack Iran? I'm not going to say I have any inside knowledge. God forbid I would know what's going on inside the brain of Donald J. Trump or Benjamin Netanyahu. There are some places nobody should ever go, and those would be two of the darkest places in human history. Even Adolf Hitler was I think, in some sense, had some clarity compared to these two. But it seems when you read between the lines, essentially what happened is, as you should probably know, the United States was in the middle of negotiations with Iran, negotiations which were for some bizarre reason being led by a guy named Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, and some guy named Witkoff, who is, both of these people work for the Israelis more than anybody else. So they're negotiating with Iran. Supposedly, according to the mediator, who is from Oman, everything was going really well, supposedly. Who knows? But in the middle of this negotiation, Bibi Netanyahu calls up Trump and says, look, there's a meeting, Ayatollah's meeting with his top people, I want to hit him. And for some reason, even that's bad enough that they want to, assassinate the leader of another country, along with as many of their top associates as possible. But for some reason, they feel like this requires them to go on an all-out war because they reason up, maybe not so illogically, that if they wipe out the leadership of Iran, kind of like attacking the cabinet office in the United States, they figure, well, Iran's going to reciprocate, so we might as well go all in and just blast the hell out of the whole place. So Bibi comes up with this idea, we're going to launch a war, and Iran's going to respond, so we might as well all go all in. And Trump apparently calls Jared Kushner, who has no role in the government, or the United States government, official role anyway, but has been running around the Middle East negotiating and just reeling in billions and billions of dollars from different countries, for his personal bank account, for Trump's bank account. We don't even know where all this money is going. We still don't know where the Venezuelan oil money is going. We don't know where the money from the so-called Board of Peace is going, right? We've got billions and billions of dollars, and nowadays people just, have no conception, billion, okay, that's just become so routine to throw away that word. So anyway, so Bibi calls up Trump calls up Kushner and says, well, are these negotiations going anywhere? And Kushner apparently says something like, well, I don't know, it may or may not go anywhere, because, of course, anything in the Middle East may or may not go anywhere. So, maybe that wasn't a totally unreasonable response, but that then justifies Trump and Bibi I call him Netan Nazi. Sorry to say that, but that's what I call him. So Netan Nazi and the Orange, I won't say that part. Anyway, they decide to start a war. So we start a war. We have no reason except that there's this opportunity to wipe out the Ayatollah and a bunch of other people at this big meeting. And for some reason, they think that's going to decapitate the monster. Let's go. So there we are. We're in a war. So Iran responds. Now, what's interesting about the Iranian response is that, in the past, they responded by attacking primarily Israel. This time, Iran had announced ahead of time that they would attack everything, not just Israel, but also any American bases in the region. And they left that pretty wide open. Essentially, they said they would attack anybody supporting the United States. Now, of course, remember, Jared Kushner has been going around the Middle East creating all these things that look like maybe agreements with foreign countries, and it's not clear. Are these agreements between the United States and these foreign countries like the Emirates and Qatar, or are they just personal agreements between Jared Kushner as a representative of the Trump mafia family and these foreign countries? We are in a situation in the United States where there is no line between the official role of the president and his personal role, right? Trump has been very clear that he doesn't care what anybody thinks about him grifting off the U.S. military. So basically, Kushner's going around saying, we're going to protect you, buy all these missiles, buy all these U.S. weapons. We'll be there. The U.S. military will protect you, and give me a bunch of money. Put a stash of a couple $1 billion in my Bitcoin account, and that's what they've been doing. And these countries are not signing an official agreement. There's no official defense agreement with the United States. It's just this like mafia don kind of, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You put money in my bank account, and I will, I'll protect you. I'll, defend you, and nothing bad will ever happen to you. So from Iran's point of view, all these countries are basically allies, official allies of the United States, even though in practice there's no official agreement, right? And I don't want to get too complex in this, but who knows what's going through the heads of these people in the Arab world. In the Middle East, I don't want to over stereotype, but people tend to assume that the leader of a country is all powerful. They don't realize that the president of the United States officially has very limited powers. He cannot make a treaty with another country unless it's approved by the Senate. And of course, none of these agreements that Kushner and Witkoff and others have been throwing around, none of these have been even submitted to the Senate for agreement, even written. It's just all behind the scenes. And in the Middle East, the Arab culture, this is like, to them it makes sense, right? In the Middle East, there's, particularly when you're dealing with kings and emirs and things like that, there's no separation between the official role and the personal role. So it makes sense to them that this guy is going to come grifting and asking for money and promising protection without realizing that this doesn't mean anything in the United States, right? He's conning these people, right? The president of the United States, in practice, actually has quite limited powers, although, of course, he does have the military. And then he goes ahead and he declares this war. And he didn't tell anybody, right? He didn't tell American citizens. The only thing we heard is that, oops, all the embassy people are leaving, right? The day before the attack, right? We heard this. All the embassy people are leaving, or at least the non-essential personnel, whoever they are, families and desk clerks and things like that. They're all leaving, and they're recommending that you leave too if you're an American citizen. Leave. Okay, great. And how are we supposed to do this, right? So anyway, so they go ahead and launch this war. And feel free to ask me questions in a future episode. Maybe I can respond to any questions you might have in specifics. But my goal here is not specifics. My goal is to try to show the underlying issues. So then Iran responds by attacking, as they promised, everybody, right? They launch a bunch of missiles at Israel. They launch a bunch of missiles at Army U.S. bases. And so, for example, here in Erbil, we have a major base right in the airport, right? They took over half the Erbil International Airport since, 20 years ago, since the invasion. And they've been there, right? So that's been a target. And of course, as you know, with these types of things, you have missiles coming in. They're not always 100% accurate, although I have to say, Iranian missiles and drones have been surprisingly accurate. These are not just fire and forget. These things are targeted. They've got GPS coordinates. They hit exactly. If you look at, for example, that base that was hit in Kuwait, where 6 American service men and women died. That base was surrounded by concrete barriers, so that any explosion outside those barriers would have almost no effect, right? And it was designed originally or primarily for IEDs, suicide bombers who might come up and try to get into the base, and if they blew up outside, it would really have negligible effect. Great, but if you land a missile inside those barriers, the barriers become a multiplier because they reflect back the blast, right? So this is why we had so many deaths in that particular episode, right? It was a fairly small compound, apparently, and when that missile or drone or whatever it was hit inside the base, it bounded back, and whoever was in there got hit from multiple directions with all these different blast waves. Anyway, that's not the case here. The base is very large. They hit the base significantly, caused multiple explosions and a lot of damage in the base here in Erbil. as well. But again, it's a much larger area. So it seems like they probably had a lot of injuries, but they didn't actually, supposedly, as far as we know, have fatalities. Of course, everybody is now learning that you can't believe anything the Trump administration says. Can you believe what CENTCOM says, the U.S. military command? Well, it's getting to the point where even as a U.S. citizen, I have to say, I don't know. I don't know if we can believe these guys either. They're certainly not coming forward with information. Anyway, so we have a situation where we started a war, Iran hits back. Now here's the second question you'd say. First of all, Iran, why is Iran hitting back in a way, particularly causing damage in civilian areas in some of these Gulf states? So Gulf states, I'll probably call them the GCC, Gulf Community Council. Sorry, that's the Gulf Cooperation Council. Had to look that one up. And I'm not going to tell you all the countries, but basically Bahrain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, I believe Saudi Arabia is a member of it. They might not be. Kuwait, of course, is a member. I'm not sure if Iraq is a member. I believe it's not actually a member of the Gulf Community Cooperation Council, although Iraq is on the Gulf and in Basra. Anyway, so why did Iran attack these countries? Well, obviously, if they have U.S. bases, so for example, Bahrain has the U.S. Fifth Fleet, and there are U.S. bases in all of these countries due to different military agreements, and so this is a good reason. But there's another reason, which is that these countries have, for years, obviously been benefiting from their oil revenue. But some countries like Dubai, United Arab Emirates, don't actually have a lot of oil. They've made their money by perceiving themselves or projecting themselves as like a safe haven in the Middle East, right? To such an extent that Dubai has millions of tourists coming from Europe, right? Looking for a safe Middle Eastern experience. They can come to Dubai and they can go out in the desert and do kind of like a fake caravan Bedouin thing, and make believe they're Lawrence of Arabia, and then all these influencers come out like, look at me, I'm in an Arab country and I'm cool, and you know, from my point of view, I think most people in the Middle East look at Dubai as a fake city, right? I mean, it has no real reason to be there except as it was a trade hub for a long time in the old Silk Road days. Anyway, so yeah, and they've gone all in on Trump. They have paid Kushner and Trump everything they've asked for, billions and billions of dollars. And it's quite reasonable, I would say, and I think most people in the Middle East see it this way, that these are legitimate targets, that these are countries that have aligned themselves with the United States, particularly with the Trump family, right? And Iran did not attack these countries in past wars, right? But this time they did, because this time Jared Kushner and Witkoff and these others have made crystal clear that the GCC owns Donald Trump, right? They're building golf courses for him. They're building skyscrapers for him. They're giving billions of dollars into his investment funds, whatever they are, into his those crypto coins that he's been making billions and billions of dollars on, right? So, you know, this is the thing. Why haven't people in the Middle East expressed outrage in any real sense? Why haven't any of these GCC countries, any of these countries that have been attacked by Iran, even Turkey, even Iraq, for example, Saudi Arabia has been massively hit. They hit some of their oil fields and oil refineries, causing, again, billions of dollars of damage, right? You know, now billion is the new million, right? And none of them have actually responded, even said anything besides, oh, well, you shouldn't do that, we're neutral. Because everybody knows they're not neutral. And if they actually did anything, their own populations would probably overthrow them. These countries, the leaders of these countries are petrified because they know their own populations understand why Iran is attacking them. And they don't see it as an insult, I think, for the most part. Please feel free to disagree with me in the comments. If you live in a GCC country, explain to me why these countries have not reacted in any way specifically to these Iranian attacks. The only thing they've done is defensive, right? Trying to shoot down drones, trying to shoot down... Of course they do that. But none of them have joined the attack on Iran. And this is, again, Bibi Netanyahu and the orange poop head, right? They assume, right, we're going to attack Iran. They will counterattack. They will send missiles, as they have promised before that they would do. They would send missiles against the GCC, and then they're all going to join. And you still hear this on Fox News. Fox News is like, whoa, it'll be a moment until the GCC countries start counterattacking, and they're going to join in, and they're going to send ground troops, and we'll have Bahrain, and we'll have Dubai, and we'll have Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and Iraq ground troops attacking and massing to attack the Iranians. Right, and for a while, even they spread the lie that Kurdistan region of Iraq was sending troops into Iran, right? Because they're trying to create what is a fantasy in their mind. They're trying to manifest this, right? To use popular culture, right? They're trying to manifest it, right? But it's not happening. Why? Because these countries know who's to blame. They know Iran did not start this war, was not an imminent threat, does not have a viable nuclear bomb program, right? They know that this is 100% entirely the machinations of Bibi Netanyahu and pulling along by the nose the Donald Orange poophead Trump, right? And why are they going to stick their nose out for us? Certainly they're not going to send ground troops. That will never happen. Iraq did have a war with Iran for 7 years of devastating war. So many people died, right? I know many people here are still traumatized by what happened during that war, from here in Kurdistan with the massacre, the gas attacks that Saddam Hussein used against the Kurds because he thought they were aligning with the Iranians, the massacres of civilians, right? Hundreds of thousands of Kurds died as martyrs, massacred by the Saddam regime primarily because the Kurds, he thought, were siding with the Iranians. And Iran lost maybe 1 million people in the war. Iraq itself lost hundreds of thousands of people in the war. The war involved constant counterattacks, attacks and counterattacks with missiles and Scuds and things like that. Anyway, so what's the point? They're not going to attack because they know Iran is doing nothing wrong. It isn't even so much about religion, that Iran is, they're a fellow Muslim country. You probably know, if you don't, that there is a massive schism in the Islamic world between a group called Shia, a group called Sunni, right? They have slightly different belief systems, particularly some different political belief systems. I'm not going to get into it. But the point is, Iran, as most people probably know, is kind of the center of the Shia population. And Saudi Arabia, well, I don't know if there's a particular center of the Sunni population, but most of what we call the Arab countries are Sunni. Iran is not Arab. Iran is Persian. Anyway, I'm not going to get too much into detail because this is already too long. So why haven't they responded? Because they, at the end of the day, they cannot fool their own populations. If they joined any attack against Iran, their own populations, whether Sunni or Shia, and some of them have significant Shia populations, like Bahrain is primarily Shia. Saudi Arabia has very large Shia populations. Iraq is almost half Shia, right? So you have large Shia populations in these countries, but it isn't just them. Even the Sunnis do not, you go out on the street, the Sunnis do not believe Iran has any culpability in this war. And 99 times out of 100, they will see attacks on U.S. military bases. Here in Erbil even, I see nobody on social media, nobody saying anything about, oh my God, why are the Iranians attacking? Everybody knows they're shooting at the U.S. base, at the U.S. consulate, and people here, maybe they don't cheer openly, but in a lot of places they do, right? And those are local people who might be damaged or hurt or even killed by shrapnel, by, the biggest danger is not the missiles coming from Iran because they're going to the base and they're pretty well targeted at this point, right? The biggest danger is the interceptors going out that blow up the missiles and spread shrapnel all over the place, and that has caused much more havoc than anything else here, right? So again, people are not mad at Iran for defending themselves, put it that way. Right? But okay, let's talk a little bit about what's going to be happening in the future. Iran is being systematically destroyed. They are wiping out power stations. They are wiping out oil areas. They are doing as much as they can, supposedly targeting military areas, but there's a shocking amount of civilian casualties, not even including the girls' school that was blown up at the beginning of a sneak attack, right? Remember, Israel and the U.S. never announced they were going to attack Iran. And I remember having discussions with local people here, and, people were like, it looks like the U.S. is going to attack. They're going to do something. Israel wants to attack. But like most people here were thinking, yeah, this will happen after Eid. They would never be stupid enough to attack during Ramadan, right? Which is, if you don't know, the holy month, right? For Muslims, kind of like Lent, but a lot more serious, right? People here go without food and water for the entire day, right? That's a big sacrifice. I can't do it. I've tried. I can't do it, right? And nobody thought they would attack during Ramadan. Some people say maybe they'll attack during. No, they attacked the next day, right? Which is, I can't even remember now, the 28th of February or something. I don't even know. Again, that was another shock. Why are you attacking in the middle of the holy month, which is sacred to all Muslims, both Sunni and Shia, right? Why do you expect Sunni countries or other Arab countries or Arab countries, period, to somehow join your fake invasion? They sneak attack. They didn't announce it. This is like Pearl Harbor, right? You think when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, you think anybody in the world was like, well, you know what? The Japanese were justified. Oh, we should join Japan. No. They lost every ally except for Germany on that day. Right? So no, you don't have a Pearl Harbor attack on a foreign country and expect everybody to join you just because that country defends itself. No, nobody understands the logic behind that except Bibi Nazi and Donald Orange Poophead Trump, because these people have no clue about what's going on in the Middle East. Right? And you might wonder why. I mean, here's Israel. They're in the Middle East. They're surrounded by Arab countries. You think they would understand right? How Muslims and Arabs and Persians think, right? Because they've been at war with them for 50 years. Okay, more than 50 years, right? 100 years. I don't even know anymore, right? But they don't, because Israelis are made up of two types. One is like the old Israeli who's been there from the beginning, and they just hate everybody around them, right? And then you got new Israelis who have migrated in from other countries, and they still have this very Western conception. They have no idea what's going on around Israel, right? And certainly anybody who does is not going to get far in the Bibi Netanyahu regime. So here we have a situation. You have Israel, and of course, sorry, nobody in the Trump administration has any clue about what's going on in the Middle East, right? Even Jared Kushner, who's probably the person who most deals with, when he goes anywhere, all he does is talk about money, right? He has no conception of the local cultures. He's Jewish. I don't hold that against him. I have nothing against Jewish people, but all he cares about is money. Right? He doesn't care. So when he goes, they all have the red carpet. They do the sword dance, right? I mean, he's like, wow, all these people love us. And that's what Trump thinks, too, because when he goes, that's what they do. They do the sword dance, and they say, here, you can build your luxury golf resort here and your luxury hotel here, and here's a couple $1 billion to get you started, right? So he thinks, because he's only dealing with the top echelon of people. That's what they think, that these people love us, right? And of course, Trump thinks everybody loves him, right? Except for all the losers and whatever. Anyway, so I was going to talk about the future, right? So they're destroying the Iranian economy. And in return, Iran is doing a bit of destruction, right? Even here, they've hit power stations, right? We no longer have, we were just on the cusp of finally having 24-hour electricity, and boom, Iran hits our local power station, and now we're back to, oh, sorry. Now, the thing is here, of course, we're so used to not having 24-hour electricity. Every neighborhood has its own generator. Apartment complexes have their own generators. So I'm living in an apartment complex. We have a generator, and they provide 24-hour electricity. But this is all depending on oil, right? So, we don't have trouble with oil, right? Problem is we can't export it. So we actually have more oil than we need. But if they start hitting refineries and things like that, that would create a big problem for us. But forget about Iraq for right now. Let's think about Iran. They're wiping out power stations. They're wiping out refineries. That is not Iran. I'm talking about Israel and the United States. Wiping out power stations, wiping out refineries, right? Let me tell you, right now, it's early March. It's quite cool. In fact, I would say very comfortable. This is spring in this region, particularly here in Kurdistan and most of Iran is mountainous, so it's cool weather. It's not fantastically hot. But when it gets hot and 110, 120, 130 degrees, and you don't have those power stations, you don't have those refineries to provide gasoline for even your personal generators, it is going to be extremely difficult to live here, right? That's going to be a problem all over the region, but Iran is devastated. So here's what I project. I project up to 2 million, maybe that's a conservative estimate, Iranians trying to get the hell out of Iran, maybe more than that. You haven't seen, even start yet because, Iran is still being bombed, so it's hard for people to even move around, right? And most of the borders around Iran are closed. But you're going to see so much pressure. You're going to have mass migration from Iran. Where are they going to go? They're going to try to go into Turkey because they can get straight to the EU from there. They're going to try to come into Iraq if they have no other options. I don't know if any will go to Afghanistan, but that you may see refugee camps on the border with Afghanistan. Certainly into Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, Pakistan, these are all countries bordering Iran. You're going to start seeing massive flows of migrants. And, you know, the old story, they're going to try to make their way into Europe. Probably a significant number of them will end up in the United States. So, you know, again, Trump, anti-immigrant, is going to cause a new flood of immigrants into the core of the United States. So that's going to happen because conditions in Iran are going to be literally impossible, right, to live and survive. This is 99% because Trump and Netanyahu have made a conscious decision to really destroy the Iranian economy, not just their military, but their economic assets. And in the meantime, of course, here we are supporting Russia, right? Iran is actually pumping more, some people say more oil than ever. They have lots of ways to get oil out of Iran. Whereas, as you probably know, they control the Strait of Hormuz. So they're not letting any of the GCC countries get oil out that way, right? We've got Qatar, we've got Bahrain, not so much Bahrain, but all these countries pumping oil. Iraq alone, 4 or 5 million barrels of oil a day. Altogether, about 20 million barrels of oil a day are produced in this Gulf, Persian Gulf, which I wouldn't be surprised if Trump calls it the second Gulf of America any day now. That's a lot of oil, right? That's about 1/4 of the world's oil supply. But Iran is still sending out oil, right? They're not going to bomb their own ships, and they have pipelines also where they can send oil out. Russia is being released from their sanctions because Trump is so desperate to let anybody sell oil because he's destroyed the oil market. Now he's letting Russia sell oil. From that point of view, right, I mean, here Russia and Iran are allies, so we're allowing both Iran and Russia to make extra money, masses of extra money, right? And we're losing money, right? Because, you know, in Trump's America, that's what we do, right? We lose. We lose. Anyway, so that's all I'm going to do right now. I'm going to post this, and we hope you have a great day if you're not being bombed right now. And if you have questions, comments, please get back to me. Bye. Oh, yeah, that's all I want to say. Bye. Save whatever, follow whatever if you like. I don't really care because I just do this to, you know, try to undo that stuff. Bye.